In this episode, I'm gonna talk about a strategy to achieve what you want to achieve. Hello and welcome back. My name is Andrei and this is the episode 12 of Decode Your 20s. I'm gonna explain something that finally clicked in my head, and I'm sure that you have heard it before. It's not my idea, it's an idea which is pretty common, but it takes some time until it clicks in your head. And that is said in multiple ways. It's either called starting with the end goal in mind, or as Steve Jobs would say, connecting the dots looking backwards. Now, I'm pretty sure that you have heard something like this. This is for sure an idea that you have heard previously, and probably the most famous person who said this is Steve Jobs when he was invited to keep speech at Stanford University. He said the idea of connecting the dots looking backward. Let's firstly see that 1-minute video and then I'm gonna explain it.
If I had never dropped out, I would have never dropped in on that calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something. Your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
Cool. So we see that Steve Jobs talks about the idea of connecting the dots looking backwards. But the thing is, what does this thing actually mean? And let's start from the idea that there are two ways of thinking of how to solve a problem or how to achieve something that you want to achieve. For example, take a job, right? And let's explain this to approaches using an analogy. The approaches are, you either try to achieve your goal in a strategy bottom up or in a strategy top down. Let me explain. So imagine that you are playing a game in which you have a maze and you are at the beginning of the maze and you want to exit the maze. Now you have two possible strategies that you can employ in order to exit the maze, right? So the first one is that from the point that you are right now, you want to go at the exit, and you can start going and trying a path until you arrive at the end. Now the problem with a maze is that you try some paths, but they might be closing and you have to go backwards, and then you have to move again, and you might end up again in a closing spot, so you go again backwards and you go, and until the end you might exit the maze. The problem with this approach is that firstly it's slow because you go backwards and you move like 100,000 times until you go at the end. So this is clearly a problem. And let's imagine that the point when you are starting is called the bottom, and the point when you are finishing it's called the top. Now we have the bottom and we have the top. And the first strategy, meaning starting from the bottom to the top, is called a bottom-up approach because you move upwards. Now let's see the other strategy. So in the beginning we start from the bottom to the top. Now let's see if we can find a strategy in which we start from the top and we go to the bottom. So we are at the end of the maze and we want to find a path to come at the entrance. So we can start from the end and we can walk backwards until we arrive at the beginning of the maze. And the good thing about this is that there is only one unique path which goes from the end until the entrance. This is a good thing. What does this mean? It means that if you start from the end and you go to the beginning of the maze, you already found a path. So what you need to do right now is to walk on that path, and you will be 100% exiting the maze. So it will be faster, right? This is called a top-down approach, because you start from the top and you go downwards till the end. Good. So we see the two approaches, and it's super similar with what Steve Jobs said there. Now, let's think about advantages and disadvantages of these two approaches in the maze example. So if you start from the entrance and you go to the end, the advantage is that it doesn't require any thinking upfront. You just start to go, right? So it's super easy and intuitive, and like it's the most common approach. You just start and you try like all the possible paths, and until the end you might end up there. But we saw that it's slow. Now in the other approach, in the top-down approach, you need some thinking at the beginning such that you find a path from the end till the beginning. So it requires some time upfront, but it's faster because once you find a path, you just have to go from the beginning till the end. Good. What Steve Jobs said there, it's exactly the top-down approach. So you have the two dots, meaning the entrance in the maze and the exit in the maze. And you want to connect them, like you want to find a path which will take you from the beginning till the end. And how you can do that? You need to start connecting the dots looking backwards. Meaning you need to start from the end and try to find a path till the beginning. Sounds easy in theory, but let's see some practical examples how you might apply this into the real life. And let's take the example of applying for a job, right? So let's say that you are a student and you want to apply for a software engineer position at a company. Let's see what are the differences between the two approaches. So the first one is bottom up. So you know that you want to get that job and you try to get the job, but you don't have a plan on how to actually get the job. So what will happen is the following. You will finish your university and you will get your degree. Good. Then you will apply for all the jobs, and when some emails start coming back to you to invite for an interview, you will find out that you need to have coding skills in terms of algorithm, like some things that they can test you in the interview. You might find out that you were even rejected because you didn't have enough projects in your CV. So you might find later on that there is something that you didn't know how to do. And this is super similar with the maze approach, right? So you are at the beginning of the maze and you try all possible ways going forward, coming backwards and so on until the end you get. So the problem is this with the approach of applying to job this way is that you don't know what they ask you to do, right? But the second approach, which is the best, by the way, is to connect the dots looking backwards. Meaning, you know that you want a position. You look what does that position require, like what programming languages do you need to know? What skills do you have? How many years of experience? In which city is that position? So you have a list of the things that you need to have in order to get that thing. Then you go on this website called google.com and you search for interview questions. You practice. Then you build a strong CV. Then you create a GitHub account. So you are preparing all the steps in order to get there. And what you basically did is that you started with the end goal, meaning getting that job, and you computed a list of all the steps that you need to take in order to take this job, which is literally connecting the dots looking backwards. Good. Seems pretty easy, right? The problem is that it seems easy in theory, but it's slightly harder in reality. So what you need to do is, at every decision that you are making in order to achieve something, you need to start thinking from that something coming backwards. Let's take another example, which is even simpler than the first one, and that is writing an email. Whenever you write an email to someone, you need to think, what do you want to achieve with that email? Like, in the best case scenario, what should happen after that email, right? Do you do an email just to like bluff, to like try to see if something happens, or you actually want to get something, to achieve something? And if you start thinking backwards, like a top-down approach, you will firstly think, what do I want to happen after this email? Good, so you want to get $1,000 to plant trees in Africa. Good. So you need to write that email to prove that you are a person who can get that $1,000 and can do what you say that you are gonna do with them, meaning plant trees in Africa. So you have the goal to plant trees and get the money. So now you need to structure your email step by step such that you will get that. This is how it works basically. Like, even before I make this video, I start thinking backwards. I start thinking, what do I want to tell you? What value should you get from this video? What information can I transmit you? Or more exactly, what do I want to happen after you watch this video? And the answer for this video would be, I want to make you think of these two approaches and start to practice the approach of thinking backwards. And what did I make? So I made my goal to make you think of those two approaches. So what did I have to do? I have to explain them to you in a nice, easy and simple way, in a practical approach, such that you are gonna use it. And what did I do afterwards? I wrote some steps that I need to take in order to explain this to you. So I wrote that I need to show you the video with Steve Jobs. Then I need to explain you the bottom up and top down. Then I need to give you the maze example. Then I need to explain you the job application and the email example. And then I need to tell you exactly what I'm telling you right now. So I made a plan. I started thinking backwards from the top to the bottom. I made a plan, and now I hope that you understood these two approaches. And the point is now, whenever you take the next decision in order to achieve something, think it in a top-down approach, or connect the dots looking backwards. Thank you for watching. I appreciate that you took the time to watch my video, and if you got any value from it, I would appreciate if you subscribe. Thank you.